Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
What's going on? It is the GSMC Football Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. Once again, quarantine podcasting. No quarantine radio here, but quarantine podcast. Me and Brice back at it again. Brice is at home. I am at home. Everybody's at home. How are you doing at home, Brice?
I'm doing well, man. Like I like to tell people out here, I'm built tough. I have a good foundation, and so this ain't nothing to me. I'm getting through it every day, and just having to stay out there and just try to keep a positive mindset. That's the best thing you can do during this time.
It's the only way you can keep your head up is to keep a positive mindset about the whole thing. Take it one day at a time, one couch sit, one lay in bed, one book, one hobby, one Netflix show at a time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We have some things to talk about. Not too much is happening right now. You know, a few weeks ago we lucked out, man. We had some content going. we had a content barrage, and we're drying up a little bit now. It's getting hot. So we do have a little bit of stuff, though. On the first ballot of our topics of conversation today is football in general. So if you have not been paying attention, Trump held a meeting with most of the major commissioners in professional sports to talk about when these activities will be able to come back, and setting timetables and just having conversations on what are the next steps in order to get sports back on cable networks, get sports back to where they need to be, because the world needs sports more than ever. And the topic of conversation right now is that President Trump is claiming that football should be back in the fall, in September. And we're just going to talk about that because personally, I have a hard time believing it. It just doesn't seem right. Like, so hear me out. There is no logic behind this ideology. There was no doctor, no medical professional. No one has claimed to know exactly when this will be essentially over with. There's no vaccine potentially coming out until 15 to 18 months down the line. So the virus can bounce back in said fall, in the winter time, and we could just be back all over again. And who knows? I just find it hard to believe that a gathering like a sports venue where a lot of people are huddled up, you got so many individuals, you got people who have to work the arenas and the stadiums, you have the coaches, the coaching staff, the reporters, camera crew, the players, and then potentially fans. Like, only, what would it be, 4 months? We're thinking, 4 months down the line? 5? I just find it hard to believe that in 5 months we're just going to be able to go back as things regularly scheduled programming. Because this is coming from a guy who said that this was going to be over in April. We're in April now, bro. It is nowhere near close. I don't know if sports comes back in the fall, man. I think this might have to take a year-long hiatus.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying. I think the biggest takeaway from the situation was when he said with fans, because that's the biggest issue here. Is the fans, I think a lot of people's opinion too, outside of the staff that you've named. Because how are you going to be able to put a college football stadium filled with 100,000 fans and the coronavirus is still going around? You know, it would be kind of hard to be able to do that.
And you know, it's crazy. He never even mentioned college football. He didn't talk to the NCAA, I don't believe.
I mean, we don't really know every single commissioner, because they say it was 12 commissioners of big leagues. Yeah. So I'm assuming it's one of them. Only ones we know for sure are like the 4 major leagues. I know that he talked to WB's president or head of everything, Vince, and probably XFL too. But outside of that, and I would assume college is in there too, but anybody else outside of that, I have no clue. But yeah, I think it's just the fans. It's just going to be hard to get fans back in there. Like, that's why, like, basketball, you keep hearing from basketball's perspective, oh, if we start the season back, there's no fans. Because realistically, how, like, it's going to be hard to have that type of atmosphere there with this still going around and us not having a vaccine in a while. I mean, you know, maybe he's going to try some drastic measures to try to get this thing settled in so then he can have it by then. Because, I mean, you know, obviously that's the reason why these discussions take place, to try to find a common table to figure everything out. The NFL is still going on a schedule. They're still doing the draft at the same time. They're still saying they're going to have the regular season start at the same time, and et cetera. So I think right now, even though there's no 100% like, oh yeah, this is going to happen, I think they're just trying to keep an open mind, because it is 5 months from now. And you don't want to just assume in 5 months it's not going to work, because if there's a chance, you don't want to lose that opportunity. But at the same time, based off what we've heard, what we've seen out there in the news, it feels like it is a unrealistic venue to have that. Because, I mean, like, that's why, like, when Curb Street came out, it was, like, crucified by the internet for saying he thinks there will be no college football this year. I mean, he realistically might not have any college football this year.
And you know, like, it's crazy, because college football is likely the one that's just going to flat out be canceled. Because imagine this, right? You have to have, you know, people on the campus to have college football. You can't just say, oh yeah, the players got to go, but the campus is all online. It's just not happening. I refuse to believe that any university is going to say, you know what, we're going to go fully online. But these 52 men plus coaches, they're going to be on the campus. They're going to do what they're going to do. That just sounds like a firestorm waiting to happen. All it takes is one guy who's like, I'm going to go see my girlfriend, or I'm going to go see my friend down the road who somehow has the coronavirus, brings it to the team, and then we're all in, you know, things canceled again. And it just looks bad.
NCAA is going to get crucified if that happens. They're going to be like, how dare you?
Just like the money, the revenue, they wouldn't make any money. Who's going to the games? They would make, I guess, TV deals, but no one's going to the games, so the university's not getting any money from that. And it's just a tough scene, man. I just don't think college football is coming back this year. Like, I don't think 2020 is going to happen for college football. And then you got to look at the logistics of all of that. So do people get to keep their eligibility? Can they go straight into the draft without having to play? Like, could you imagine Trevor Lawrence not having to play another down at Clemson and be able to go into the draft?
Yeah. I mean, you might see a lot of them stick around, and the NCAA has to prepare for that, because obviously you still have the new class. Because you got to think about it, you would assume the new class from high school can't play, so then you're going off their junior year tape to say, well, based off this, he's a 5-star, but we don't know what he looks like after a while. It would just ruin recruiting. It would just mess everything up for college football. So it would definitely be something that would just cause chaos from every level, really. And you got to think about, like you said, Trevor Lawrence never played snap again at Clemson. Like I said, I mean, you can go off a couple of years ago and say, well, based off these years, he was great. But again, he hasn't played football like a legit year. It's going to be like, where is everybody are? Is everybody in shape? Is everybody in a good place? You know, is everybody in the right mindset? Like, even NFL, if they happen to cancel the entire NFL season, think about people who are on contracts. Does that count? Do they still get a year on their contract towards free agency? You have some players who are looking to go to free agency after this year, but you don't want to sign a 1-year deal this year, thinking, oh, I'm going to have a chance to prove myself, don't play, and then they're going back to free agency next year. It's like, well, what am I going to do now? Unless they're just going to like let them stay on the team and like, okay, we're not going to count this year since nobody played. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's going to be, and I think the NFL is the only league where they kind of have the players in a vice grip when it comes to this decision, because their players' average time in the league is very small compared to other places. So you just don't, and it's not guaranteed money. So you never know when your time is up in the NFL. So it's very likely that if the NFL announces, oh yeah, we're going to play, I think a lot of players are going to be like, well, I got to go get this bread because I don't know when it's going to last.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably. I mean, what else would you really do with that situation? I would think some players might still say, I'm not going to play. But, a lot of players are like, I need this money, so.
Right. I mean, we already saw some elements of this type of stuff during the collective bargaining agreement, right? They went for a lot of the lesser players wanted more money up front and better pay up front for minimum wage players, and that's what ended up being in the deal, because they want to make as much money as they can because they don't know when their time is up, and there's no guarantee they're going to be one of the top echelon players in the league. So they just got to they're looking for the instant cash. So similar aspects to guys who feel like, there's no telling when my time is up. I got to strike while the iron's hot. And if that means they got to go play during the heat of coronavirus or during while it's still around potentially and it's not 100% clear, you just got to take that risk in some people's eyes. So it's pretty crazy. But let's take a break and we'll get into some more NFL offseason stuff.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, so we're coming back in. Phase 1 of the NFL offseason delayed at least a week. So in the original offseason timeline, teams that hired new coaches in the offseason would be able to start offseason workouts Monday. So example, Mike McCarthy in Dallas, Joe Judge in New York, Ron Rivera in Washington, Matt Rule in Carolina, Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland could all have been addressing their full squads today, but that is not the case with off-season workouts pushed. NFL Network's Joe Batista reported last week that the plan for virtual workouts and classroom sessions were being discussed. And as the league continues to grapple with the lockdowns and all the timetables, they're just going to have to feel this one out until we get to the draft, and that's when big decisions come. And the draft is in a few weeks, which will be held virtually as previously announced. And what's your take on all of this? As things are really getting pushed back farther and farther, and it's coming to the point where we might as well not put dates on things anymore, or we'll look at it next week, or we'll wait in a month. Like, should things just be suspended indefinitely altogether?
Well, that'd probably be a smart thing to do, to suspend it indefinitely. But I understand why they do it. Because, obviously the biggest issue is, this is one of the concerns that a lot of leagues have with their players, especially like basketball, is that, you have these camps to help your players get into shape, to help them try to work on some early things with offense, defense. Nothing too serious. It's really light around this time. but just to start off. And now you don't have that ability to contact them as coaches. That's why I understand why they're looking at virtual classrooms and stuff, because, you still want to be able to give knowledge to your players, and then players give feedback back to the coaches. I remember watching on TV, a lot of NFL players are going to a lot of these athletic workout, I guess, like places where, there's head trainers, and then they go there and how to stay in shape. Because obviously staying in shape is the biggest thing. Because here's the thing. We know when trade camp especially happens, I think every player has to take a certain physical. And if you don't pass, usually they can void money and stuff like that. And that's why players are also trying to stay in shape, to make sure they're always on top of their physical game as much as they can. Also, like I said, you're not going to get work with your teammates. That's why they said it's going to be really bad for guys like just any new rookie quarterback or any new quarterback, because you're not going to be able to work with those players. I mean, you can, but it's going to be like, oh, why are you supposed to be social distancing? So, it's kind of one of those things. Like, you really can't go outside of your state or really outside of your city for the most part sometimes.
Right. You have to believe that quarterbacks are still working out with trainers, right? Like, I just have to assume that they're still working out with trainers.
If Jameis working out, he ain't on a team, then I would assume people are on the team are working out.
Right. So at this point, it's pretty common knowledge to assume that these guys are still working out with people, but it's very limited. I would assume one trainer or one personal trainer or whatever the case may be, because if you want to play football, you got to throw the ball as a quarterback. And I'm sorry, you can't just throw the ball down the field to nobody. You can't just work on your mechanics by yourself in a full range of to get the full range of dropping back and reading coverages or going through your progressions. You need, you need people to help you out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't know if your technique is right the 100% of the time. You need somebody to critique you and catch the ball, essentially. You need somebody to catch the ball.
I mean, I think the advantage goes to players who already have played with players they've had. Like, think about in Atlanta, technically. I'm assuming most of all the Atlanta Falcons live in Georgia. So, if possible, they could maybe link up. Matt could link up with Julio and them and still work out. But, that's why I said for, new guys. Like, Tom, he had to come to Tampa, but at the same time, we don't know with his family if he's going to leave them. Because I'm sure he hasn't made that official move yet that quickly. So he's going to have a hard time trying to work with Mike and work with Chris Godwin and players like that.
I can't imagine he's moved to Tampa already, because who's moving stuff in the midst of coronavirus? What moving company is going to help you out right there?
Exactly. So that's kind of the situation that a lot of guys are in. So the teams that are going to have the advantage of the players that have already played together, that already have chemistry, because that's more of just, okay, getting it back under us. I'm not having to learn you. We're just getting our reps down. Where, like I said, new quarterbacks or new rookie quarterbacks, they have to get reps. They have to learn, how do you throw it to him? What is his sweet spot? Where can you throw it? Stuff like that. That's why they were discussing. And this is a very big thing. Okay, so like I said, Joe Burrow is probably going to go number one overall with Cincinnati. He was projected to be the starting quarterback. If they can't even get on the field till August, you really going to start him in September? If it was possible to play in September, that's unrealistic. So you would have to go with Andy Dalton if you keep him, because you can't just say, we only going to give you 1 month to train, and then you just got to go out there and we expect you to be great.
Yeah.
So if you see teams that have already had familiar chemistry, just play better through the passing game at least early on and stuff like that, then that's why, because they've already had the chemistry with those players and those receivers and quarterbacks, and even within the same offense if there's not too many changes. And it's just about, you could get reps during the game. Even though it is during the game, you could get it down. But when you're playing during the game, you're not used to playing with certain players, you have to figure them out while also getting reps, while also trying to win.
Yeah.
So it's two different challenges.
And even then, so it could just be a case of they just don't care. They see as a championship window or bust, and coronavirus or not, they're just going to silently link up and get to practicing. And I want to always think that people are going to practice good health consciousness and good hygiene in the midst of a pandemic. But people can tend to be selfish sometimes, and they look at this as a championship window. They have this much time to put in this much work. And some people are totally so obsessed with their professions, their jobs, to the point to where they don't know what to do with themselves. So they just start working out anyway, or they'll figure something out in order to make this viable. And you even see it in basketball a bit. I remember before we were all in self isolation, essentially, I just remember seeing reports of the Pelicans. The only 3 players at a time could go into the practice facility, and there was photos of Lonzo and Brandon Ingram together doing some jump shots. I would imagine that's still happening to some degree. It's just not widely publicized. And most players who are loaded, like in basketball leagues, probably have a home gym anyway. So maybe they're not going to the practice facility anymore because they're probably closed. But what's stopping somebody from traveling down the road from their teammate and going to shoot some basketball to get the rhythm down and make sure they're still prepped and in shape, especially if they don't have an in-home basketball gym, right? Like maybe you're on a rookie deal and you were not a top echelon rookie, and you don't have money to build in an in-home gym, right? You would have to assume that they still got to keep working on their craft. Where are they going to go? They can't go to the park. They'll get arrested. They can't go to the YMCA. They can't go to the Planet Fitness. They don't have gyms. They can't go to anywhere that has a gym and a court. So either their practice facility or somebody else's house. That's just what's going to happen. Or you're not practicing.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's tough, man. Just, as a player during this time. I mean, think about free agency. You couldn't even meet with the people you were signing with. You basically had to talk on the phone. Yeah, man. So we're going to offer you about 5 years, and we want you. But you don't get that in-person court because of the coronavirus. And so basically, players have, even though you've seen the head coach, you've never officially met your new head coach yet and talked about stuff except over the phone. You can only do so much over the phone. Right. And I just think it's one of the biggest challenges of this football season. Because if football does come back, do not be surprised if the quality of play is not as great early because of this. Because we're expecting these players. Now, the only argument you can potentially make, and this is an argument that's been made for a while, is that think about college football. They, outside of spring training and then practices, they'll go out there week 1 and play. Where NFL, they feel like you need preseason games and then you play. So a question I have is, okay, well, if you're not going to have that much practice time, are we finally going to appreciate the preseason? Because now it's like we need these games? Or are we going to still sit here and say we want to just go ahead and start the regular season?
They're probably going to just start the regular season. And I think that's just what's going to end up happening. They're not going to waste any time on the preseason. They don't care about the preseason. They haven't cared about the preseason this whole time. You think they're not going to miss out on ample time because they don't know if the coronavirus will circle back around. They don't know if things get delayed even more. They can't risk that. So they got to get the iron while it's hot, because if they can even make it to 14 games, even if they have a 14-game season instead of 16, or maybe they have a 12-game season and delayed till October or something like that, I would believe they do that rather than saying, if we start in October, we still got to do the preseason. That's going to we're going to have football in March, maybe borderline April. That's not sounding good to me personally. That just sounds like they just wouldn't know what to do with that. They would definitely shorten the season for sure. And that would just be it. But
that would be difficult though, just because of not this year, but the next year.
Exactly.
The collective bargaining agreement coming in, because that's what's actually funny about the situation is that they ain't never got this collective bargaining agreement done, and then somehow the season got canceled by Corona, and then they were struggling to get a deal done the next year. We might not even have football the next year after that, and that would just been a terrible disaster for everybody.
Right. So the owners went out at the end of the day on that one. They got sandwiched into Corona and people wanting money, and people got scared about the potential money revenue loss. Could you imagine 2 seasons worth of no football? Man, that'd be insane. But let's take a break and we're going to get into some more news.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, so the biggest rule that changed coming into last offseason was the pass interference replay system, and after 1 year trial that was approved by owners 31-1 vote, the decision just came months after Los Angeles Rams quarterback Nikhil Roby-Coleman hit Saints wide receiver Tommy Lee Lewis early in the third down. That rule was implemented after that controversial no penalty call. And since that point, the rule has really not made any real difference in games besides people complaining that it just doesn't get overturned. Some people believe that the referees united against this rule and purposely did not make certain calls because, out of anger and out of protest for this type of rule. And some people think that the rule was just a waste of time anyway. It was a big PR thing that never ever came to fruition. Or maybe it was because the Saints cried so much and it didn't even matter in the end. And at the end of the day, the no PI rule or the PI rule for review essentially was just something to make fans a little bit calmer afterwards, and it fizzled out. But the rule is probably not coming back next season. How do you feel about this, Brice? Because I have some thoughts personally about it, just because I think one of my favorite teams gets a bad rap.
I feel like when they made the rule, it was a reaction. I feel like miscalls happen. Human error happens. Even if it seems blatant, it happens. Even though that's sad to say. And the thing is, you slow the game down when you try to police every little thing. And I feel like this was one of those rules that just wasn't needed. I feel like this really showed, because here's the thing. A lot of referees see the plays clearly most of the time. And if they see tussling and they say no call and then you challenge it, even if it's not the same ref, they're going to hear what the other ref said, and then they're going to go look at it and say, well, he was right. It was just tussling. Why would we throw a flag? And I feel like that's one of the reasons why this was a rule that can be very hard to be overturned if you're a team this year, which I think all the teams didn't realize throughout the season. This rule isn't doing anything. I mean, there are situations that you can say, yeah, like obviously a big situation. Obviously we knew about what happened with you guys, the Saints and the Rams, but we could talk about the end of the Vikings Saints game when people feel like Kyle Rudolph pushed off and they didn't challenge that. But sometimes things like that happen. You can't police every little thing. So, I mean, listen, this is just something that I feel like was needed to be done. I think they need to take it out of the game. And we just gotta go back to human error, and there's gonna be more calls we're gonna be pissed about, but that's just how it is. So, you can go ahead and give your thoughts, Ethan.
Alright, so, bear with me here. The Saints fans, Saints people, personnel, they may have pretended to want, the personnel, like the coaches may have pretended to want this rule, and people think that the Saints push for this rule. I'll tell you this as a fan. Nobody wanted this. We didn't want a whole rule for pass interference to be reviewed. That's not how, at least not how I felt. Like, no one wanted this. We wanted the call to be reversed at the time. And that's just all we wanted. Or we wanted the call to be made, the right call. We wanted people to look at this and say, this was a humongous missed call and it needs to change. That shouldn't happen. But we didn't ask for, pass interference needs to be reviewed. We didn't ask for this. We didn't ask for this debacle, this atrocious system that doesn't work anyway. That's a mockery of basically the pain Saints fans went through that day. It's just a humongous mockery because every time somebody threw the flag to challenge pass interference, everybody talks about the Saints potentially getting screwed over, or everybody talks about the Saints crying about this rule that doesn't work. And then in the playoffs, here we go again, the push off. Look at them looking for a call again. Why can't they just finish games and win without having to deal with this? And listen, I wish we could. I really wish we didn't have to go through the tooth and nail and lose tragically every single time something like this occurs. But let me tell you something. When you go back and look at what happened in the Super Bowl, where similar things happened, and they got the penalty, and it was less egregious, and it was not nearly as everything on the line. They get the call, though. That's all I have to say. That is all I have to say on that. I'm not saying there's favoritism, but I am saying some things aren't adding up. There's no consistency. It's like in baseball. You can't be mad at an umpire calling some strikes balls and calling some balls strikes if they're consistent at calling those strikes balls and calling those balls strikes. Case in point. That is it.
I feel that. No, Ethan, I have a question though. Is there any rule that we don't have or we do have right now that you want taken out or added to the game?
Let me think. You just hit me on the spot there. A rule taken out or added to the game. I think they need to look at pick plays and define what it is and what it's not.
What do you mean by that?
So sometimes pick plays are called fouls and sometimes they aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it has to do with how far the wide receiver is at the line of scrimmage and how much contact there is and how blatant the pick play is and things like that. And personally, I just think that you need to clearly dictate what a pick play is and why some people get away with it, some teams get away with it, and others don't.
Okay. So kind of like a review, like a pick review. Like, I mean, they're going to call offensive pass interference, but I don't know if we want to use that type of terminology with it. But, kind of something that we can go back and say, was that a pick? Was that not a pick? And obviously the play is still going to run. So if they score a touchdown, they didn't say it's not a pick, then it'll be ended up as a touchdown. Kind of like that, right?
Sure. I also think that push-offs are getting out of control. Not to bring that back up, but I do think wide receiver push-offs are getting a little bit out of hand, or receiver push-offs, because it's getting harder and harder for defenders to actually defend. and people can just position themselves as wide receiver, and they have a innate advantage over guys over the DBs and even potentially linebackers who are trying to defend plays where defenders have to make sure they're in front of the ball. They have to have all this precise technique. Wide receivers don't have to do that. They don't have to look back for the ball before potentially breaking something up, and 9 times out of 10, they're not going to get a pass interference call.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the push-offs, the overly aggressive offensive players who use they use the rules to their advantage. They use the grace on that rule to their advantage all the time, and the best players will do anything and everything in order to have their advantage and get the one up on defenders or their opposition. So I'm not mad at them for doing it. I just wish that there was more policing of push-offs.
Okay.
Okay. It's like the Jordan thing. Jordan pushed off.
Yeah. Quickly, my rule. I think we need to look back at the quarterback hits, because we do have that issue of determining what's a legal hit on the quarterback and what's not. Because there's a lot of hits that we see and we think, is that really need to be called? Like, how am I supposed to get him to the ground? Like, if he's head on, you're probably going to spear him, which is not illegal. That's how you do anybody. But if we do it to a quarterback, you get flagged. And so it's like, do I have to just wrap him and if you throw him down, they might throw a flag. So it's just like, well, how am I supposed to actually hit him? So I think that's something they need to look at. So they need to definitively define what kind of hit can be made. Obviously, I understand below the knees. Okay, we get that. I can tear somebody's leg out. But all the other hits above it, because I feel like if it's above the knees and below the shoulder pads, what is the issue here? I understand your concern that you don't want a franchise quarterback being out for the season because obviously that's going to change stuff. But that's how it is sometimes. Because you don't need to penalize the defense because they had a wide open sack and they wanted to lay a hit on them. So I think that would be the one rule I would look at and try to redo. I think they should keep it, but they need to redo it.
Okay, so your stance is the rules should be in place, but they need to be more specific on how it's handled, how it's called.
Yeah, so then if you tell the defenders who could sack the quarterback, okay, this is this is a legal hit on him, then it works because it's like, okay, I know how I have to hit him. Where if you sit there and just say, don't hit him egregiously, I don't know what egregious to you is. I can push a guy down, y'all think that's egregious. So what is egregious?
Fair enough. Well, let's take another break and we're going to get into the all-decade team.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
So the NFL has announced their 2010s all-decade team roster. So similar to what other leagues have done, and it's very interesting. It's like what they did with their all-time teams for the 100 years. There have been some snubs, some people feel like, but for the most part, the list looks okay. You can be mad if you want it to be, but let's think about this logically here. So on offense, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, those are your two quarterbacks. You can say that maybe Peyton Manning, maybe, but how long? Well, Peyton Manning left 2015? So he was
Yeah,
only
I think that was last year.
So yeah, he was only in it for half a decade. Tom Brady's been in it the whole time, and so has Aaron Rodgers. So I think that's pretty fair to say, though. I guess the reasonable people who believe that they may have been snubbed is Drew Brees, because Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers have pretty similar tales of the take when it comes to their careers, don't you think? You kind of could have went one or the other. I think they might have gave it to A-Rod because technically he won his Super Bowl within the decade, and Drew Brees won it literally at the tail end. So I suppose that might be one reason. Who else could be a quarterback interchangeable? I think that might be it, really.
Yeah, cause you could say Big Ben, but I don't think Big Ben. That'd be the only other guy I could think of.
Well, yeah, Big Ben didn't win. He went to the Super Bowl. I don't think he didn't win one again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, that's probably the whole all-decade team for quarterbacks. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Then there's Frank Gore, Marshawn Lynch, LaShawn McCoy, Adrian Peterson for running backs. Immediately you have to think that Frank Gore might be misplaced.
I mean, listen, Frank Gore he's a guy who you'll never look at and say, wow, Frank Gore. But he has been solid from 2010 to 2020, and you can't deny that. Where you have running backs who were good for 2 or 3 years, he has been good for the last 10.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this is more of a respect. This is more of an honorary. We're going to put you on this team because of how long you've done it and how long you've done it at the level you've done it. Because he's never been a top 3 guy in the league, but he's been consistently good everywhere he goes, every team he's with.
Right. And to be honest, I don't know if I can think of a back that's been in the league from 2010 to 2020 and had so much success as these 4. Like LaShawn, he's kicked the bucket a few times around the league, but when he was hot, and he's always been productive when he's on the field. Adrian Peterson is timeless for some reason. He doesn't age. Marshawn was one of the best backs for a long stretch of times. Won 2 Super Bowls. Or no, they went to 2, won 1. And Frank Gore has just been a timeless machine. 49ers, he was a problem. When he was on the Colts, he was a medium problem.
Even when he was with the Dolphins for a year, he was their best back. He had 1,000 yards. He was a problem.
He just finds a way. He finds a way to get the ball. All right, wide receivers. Antonio Brown, Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones. Any issues here?
I don't have any issues here.
I don't either. Some people say Dez got snubbed, but are you really putting Dez over anybody there? Like, I guess the only one you could probably say is, does Larry belong in there? And I think yes, because Larry Fitzgerald has had the sustainability as much as Frank Gore, really. Like, he's Tim Duncan of football. He's just Mr. Reliable.
Yeah, because Larry been in the league since 03, 04. It's 2020, about to play another season, so.
Yeah, so I just don't, I see that one as it stands tried and true. I can't really think of any, some people are saying T.Y. Hilton. That's just not, he's hurt too much. I don't think he's very injury prone, unfortunately. I think that hurts his case. And except for, I think Calvin and Antonio, because I don't think Antonio's made it to the Super Bowl during that Steelers run. Did he?
No, I don't. Well, yeah. I want to say he was on the Super Bowl team.
Not the 2010 one.
Hold up. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
And I don't think he was on the team when they lost to Green Bay. But besides Calvin and Antonio.
Oh yeah, he was there this 2010 year.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, he was a rookie that year. So he wasn't like a big part of the team, but he was there.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess by technicality, the only The only person to not make it to the Super Bowl on that list is Calvin Johnson.
Sadly.
But we all know Calvin Johnson was a guy, a man, a big dog. But all right, let's go ahead and keep going here. So, flex Darren Sproles. That one, I'm pretty okay with. Darren Sproles has had one of the more interesting third down back, wide receiver back careers we probably could have seen.
He'll be a Hall of Fame flex player.
Honestly, right. Tight ends, Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce. Now, some people are very upset Jason Witten is not on this list.
I mean, Witten ain't never put up numbers like them. He was just a great red zone target, a great reliable guy in Dallas. That's just the Cowboy fans wanting some credit. Jason Witten does not belong on this list. He's a good player, but he ain't their level of player.
All right.
You got to think about it. Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski were both basically number one targets for both of the teams they were on for a period of time.
Fair. I'll leave that at that. That's fair enough. Offensive line, Jason Peters, Tyron Smith, Joe Staley, Joe Thomas, Jari Evans, Logan Mankins, Zach Martin, Marshall Yonda, Alex Mack, and Marquise Pouncey.
Are we satisfied? I'm satisfied.
I'm pretty okay with that. I think offensive line had a really, really good time to shine here, and there's a lot of good ones in this all-time list. Shout out to Jari Evans, Saints legend. All right. Defense. Calais Campbell, Cameron Jordan, Julius Peppers, J.J. Watt as the ends. Any snubs here off the top of your head? When did Abrams go? Remember Abrams for the Falcons?
You mean John Abraham?
Oh, I said Abrams. John Abraham. Yeah.
I think he left it or he stopped really playing 2013, 2012.
Okay.
I can't really think of. I mean, could you have? No, I mean, no. I think this is pretty solid. I can't really think of anyone who else could have been on this list. I mean, maybe could you put Dwight Freeney on here? I mean, he played until 2016, 2017. But I mean,
his best years were behind him, though, for sure.
I think I'm pretty satisfied with this list.
All right. Defensive tackles: Geno Atkins, Fletcher Cox, Aaron Donald, Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah, pretty solid.
Yeah, I don't really have any disagreements there. Linebacker: Chandler Jones, Luke Kuechly, Khalil Mack, Von Miller, Bobby Wagner, Patrick Willis, my boy. Shout out to Big Patrick. People forget about him, man. That was a monster.
He was the GOAT linebacker now. Oh,
man. That is insane. Yeah. That's a quality list. I didn't think he would make something like this, though, because he stopped so early, right? I think he left literally the year they lost the Super Bowl, right? After that, he retired?
I think so.
They kind of, they had so many defensive players retire that year. It was so strange. But Von Miller, that sounds good. Luke Kuechly is going to be a Hall of Famer. And Chandler Jones is good there. Khalil Mack is obviously a monster. And Bobby Wagner is a Swiss Army knife of all trades. Cornerbacks: Patrick Peterson, Darrelle Revis, Richard Sherman.
So, alright. So there's the Joe Hayden argument, bruh. Have Joe Hayden gotten in?
I think, considering the pedigree that two of them won a championship, one of them has been literally the best cornerback for a very long time, or he held the title as best cornerback for a very long time. I just think it's a fair list. I don't really think you can argue with that one per se. I think that's good. How do you feel? Do you think Joe Hayden should be on it?
I mean, I'm satisfied with the list. I mean, this may be a list where it hurts him being on Cleveland. If he was on a better team doing this, then you could have probably said, yeah, we could put him in over one of these guys, but
yeah,
the Cleveland thing hurt him here.
And you could argue that Patrick Peterson has had similar results, but in reality, the Cardinals have had better success. They may have not won anything, but they've gone to the playoffs a couple times, and he has been prolific, and he's been clutch, and he's done all the things that you could ask him to do as a cornerback at the position.
Yeah, he's an underrated guy in my opinion. Nobody talks about Patrick Peterson, but
right,
he was doing everything when he first entered the league. Returning kicks, locking down defenders.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's try and fly by the rest of these. Safety, Eric Berry, Earl Thomas, Eric Weddle. I think that's quality right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty quality. And then they just have 2 DB spots. So this is Chris Harris Jr. So now potentially you're getting out there, but Joe Hayden couldn't make this as assumed because he was legit just cornerback number 1 for the majority of his career. And these guys are multiple position players. So Chris Harris Jr. and Tyrann Mathieu, I think that's pretty solid as those 2 guys are very multi-dimensional defensive players. And you can slide them in basically anywhere and they will find a way to get to the football. All right. Specialist, punter, Johnny Hecker, and another punter, Shane Letcher. Kicker, of course, Steven Groskowski and Justin Tucker. Punt returner, Tyreek Hill, Darren Sproles. Kick returners, Devin Hester, Coderell Patterson. Coaches, Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll.
Everything sounds good to me, man. I mean, I guess it depends on how you feel about Coderell Patterson, but everything else sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think that Pete Carroll is probably the second best head coach in football, or one of the, as far as consistency. Like the Seattle has been good since the Legend of Boom really started to take off and has not really fallen off in the head coaching ranks, and only Bill really has more pedigree, in my opinion, as far as just being a solid head coach.
Mm-hmm. All right. Do we have enough time? Can I say something real quick?
We can go into the next segment with it. Let's go take a break real quick.
All right.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, Brice, what were you going to say before we went to break?
Well, I just looked at Joe Hayden's tweet and why he compared his stats to everybody else. And he basically made his case why he should be on the All-Decades team. So if we look at Joe Hayden's stats from 2010 to 2019, he's had 27 interceptions and 137 pass breakups. Chris Harris had 20 picks and 89 pass breakups. Patrick Peterson had 25 picks, 83 pass breakups. Richard Sherman had 35 picks, 114 pass breakups, and Darrelle Revis had 15 picks and 667 pass breakups. So he's saying, based off my numbers, I should be on the team.
But you know how it works. Winning is a very, very big multiplier here, because if you want to start going into statistics, then we got to start talking about all-time Drew Brees, and nobody wants to have that conversation. So that's why statistics are usually never the big deciding factors in these sort of things.
Yeah, I got you. But I just want to get that out there. That's what Joe Hayden said. That's what Joe Hayden thought. So I guess amongst the viewers, they can argue and debate.
I mean, he made his money. And you know, every person has a right to stick up for themselves and claim why they believe that what they believe in. So, but he's wrong. He's not there. All right. So some general news. The Bears are open or have open competition between Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky whenever the season is able to officially start, so to speak. They've talked to both players and they view it as this as an open competition. So they traded their 4th round pick to Jacksonville to acquire Foles March 18th, and the Super Bowl MVP went 0-4 in just 4 starts last season, but he was not healthy for most of the year, and he started off really strong in the first game until he got hurt, and then things just kind of really went sideways for the Jaguars season in general. Mitch is embracing it, says Matt Nagy. He doesn't care who you are. If you're a competitor and you care right away, you're going to be fired up. The competitor that Mitch is, the way he is with us, was really neat to see because he embraces it. So I ask you this, Brice, because in my opinion, I think when people say open competition is just PR to say, you know, we're giving the guy a chance, but we have his replacement and he's not going to start.
I mean, for some situations, yeah, I feel like it depends on, I feel like it's more prevalent in situations with potentially like a top pick and then somebody like just an average, you know, I feel like this situation is interesting because of this. Because, I mean, the thing about it is this. If Mitchell Trubisky comes out in camp and preseason plays better than Nick Foles, he's going to play. Because, I mean, the players see, if you tell the players, no, we're going to go with the other guy, and he wasn't the best quarterback, the team might not play as hard. But if it's close, then we know, okay, it's close. We have every reason now to go to Nick Foles instead of Mitchell Trubisky, or whatever situation you're in. I think that, in these situations, the issue I'm having is that, you know, yeah, we can sit here and say, yeah, Mitchell's not good, Mitchell sucks, whatever. But, I mean, outside of, like I said, the 1 year in Philadelphia, Nick Foles has basically been very average his whole career.
Wait a minute now. He had 2 years. 2 years in Philadelphia where he was strong. The first time around where they didn't win Super Bowl, and second time around when he did.
That's what I'm saying. In Philadelphia, he was fine, but everywhere else, like when he was not on Philadelphia, he was very average. So, you know, and then we can't do this to Mitchell. The second year, which was his first year at Matt Nagy, he did get him to 11-5 record. He did have 26-13. It wasn't like he played like trash. So we have to give him that credit. We like to take away those seasons because we saw one bad season and think that season was a fluke. He's not that good. He's trash, whatever. But you can't take that away because if that's the case, you got to take that away from Nick. So
wait, no. Mitchell was not that good his first season either. He was a rookie.
I'm not talking about his first year. I'm talking about his second year in the league. The year when they went 11-5 and he had 26 touchdowns and 13 interceptions.
Yeah, but we all knew he was very limited in his game. We're like, if he improves, of course, then we have a different conversation. But he didn't improve. In fact, he regressed.
And I get that too. But I'm saying with Nick, remember when he first had his first chance, he wasn't good because he wasn't in Philadelphia at that time. Because I think his first chance was with the Rams, I believe, and that didn't work out. Then he got to Philadelphia. I think that system worked perfectly. I think he had the receivers, everything worked perfectly with Nick there. That showed you if you put Nick in the right system, Nick can win you some games. It has been shown because I don't know if I've said this before. But for a reason how Nick can be successful is he's kind of in this situation where the Bears better have a top flight offensive line because Nick Foles is not mobile whatsoever. So if you can't block, Nick Foles is basically rendered ineffective. at least Mitchell can run. But outside of that, we don't know what he's going to get. So that's why I feel like it's a situation where you would think if Nick Foles, like I said, if it's close, Nick Foles is going to get the job. But at the same time, we can't just sit here and rule out Mitchell like it's over. Because I already said multiple times on the individual football show, I think there's going to be a quarterback carousel in the Chicago. If they don't have a winning season, both of them are going to play this year. So it might not even matter who wins for week 1.
And that means Matt Nagy is gone. That's a failure. That's a failure then. Because they need to figure it out. And if he can't figure it out with somebody like Nick Foles, and he's resulting back to going to the guy he benched mid-season, and we just kind of gloss over the fact that happened, it's just not going to work out for him there. I don't know what his next move will be, but you got to believe he's in the coaching hot seat right now. Him, your boy in Atlanta, and
Adam Gase.
Adam Gase, probably the Chargers head coach, is probably a little bit on the hot seat.
Now, the only thing that can save these guys is this Corona stuff. Because if this season is short or they can't finish it or whatever, that might save these guys. Because it's like, well, we can't fire you because we don't have enough to fire you off of. Unless they just feel like, screw it, we just need to start over. So that might be the only thing that saves these guys. But outside of that, if they're able to play, if they can play at least even 14, 12 games, that might be good enough for them to be like, yeah, we need to let him go. So I also think what hurts Matt Nagy is a lot of fans in Chicago are not happy about Nick Foles being there because they wanted Cam Newton. Because they feel like Cam would have been better in this role than Nick Foles. Because people feel like Nick Foles is getting paid literally $20 million a year. And if he struggles, why are we paying him $20 million a year to struggle when we can maybe get Cam for cheaper? And we think he could maybe be better than Nick Foles.
I think it could be potentially that maybe at this point Cam is playing the odds ball where he's just going to be an open free agent and buy his time because it doesn't seem like anybody wants to sign him to anything long term or make him the immediate starter. So why do that when you can sit and wait and watch how the pieces fall? Of course, football is not even guaranteed to happen this upcoming season. So just wait it out, and if football does happen and guys stink up the joint, it's just one quick call to get the former MVP. And if he shows out, bigger contract, everybody wins. You know, Cam Newton gets more rest on his body, and things will work out that way, in my opinion. I think that's probably what, if I was Cam and seeing how the landscape has worked out, that's what I'm doing. If I'm Jameis Winston, I would have to assume that's what he's doing too. But I just can't imagine Jameis Winston's thinking, yeah, I'm just going to settle for a 1-year deal somewhere and be a backup and not get any sort of run, any sort of play time to showcase why I should be paid more money, right? Mm-hmm. But then again, we're in an unprecedented amount of times where sometimes you got to go chase the bag.
Mm-hmm. You gotta chase the bag, man. I mean, listen, they said both of them might have to start as backups anyway, so, which is not terrible. So,
I don't know, bro. They both were starters, and now they're both.
I mean, we could say that, but you also gotta think about it. Ryan Tannehill was a starter and became a backup. So, you gotta be realistic with yourself.
Fair.
Like, you know, so.
But Jameis literally threw 30 touchdowns. Like, you're just not gonna, his talent, we said this before, but Jameis's talent is starter quality. It's just his decision making is non-NFL quarterback quality. That's the problem.
That's what's going to make him go to the bench, that non-NFL quarterback quality. You know, I think it'll just be interesting to see. We'll have to see what happens in San Diego. We'll have to see what happens in New England. But if nothing happens there, yeah, we're definitely gonna have to wait and see.
New England's going to find a quarterback in the draft and shock everybody. I have a strong feeling it's going to be Jacob Eason, and they're going to just make it work.
It could be Jacob Eason. I'm seeing some people say Jordan Love.
There's no way that Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft trade up for Jordan Love. There's just no way. Jordan Love's not making it past round 5 or pick 15.
I mean, they are pick, what are they, like, pick 23? So that's 8 picks. I mean, they might do it. I mean, they have the ammunition to do it. It just depends if they like him enough.
I don't know. But let's take our final break, and we'll end the podcast afterwards.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, last segment of the pod. Not too much NFL news. We're just going to go into rapid fire. What have we been doing as far as the quarantine to keep ourselves mentally sharp, good, relaxed, not stressed out? Brice, what have you done? Let's say, have you done anything positive in your opinion since the quarantine has started?
I mean, I take walks.
Okay.
So
where do you walk around your neighborhood? Do you go
the neighborhood?
The cul-de-sac? You take a jog, or are you light walking?
I like walking. You know, I'm kind of big. I don't want to run, so I just walk. I usually walk for about an hour and 30 minutes. Just listen to music. Sometimes on the phone, depending what happens. And just do that. You know, my neighborhood's pretty big, so I can get a good little walk in here at my neighborhood. But that's what I do for like my exercise, because obviously a big thing during this quarantine is how do you stay active? How do you continue to get exercise? How do you continue to keep yourself in shape? And obviously I do that just to help out. So that's one thing I think that's positive. Obviously before I go and walk, obviously allergy season is upon us, so I have to take allergy medicine, but you know, I always try to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a banana, something like that. You know, just try to get some good nutrition in me. You know, not trying to eat bad for later. And, you know, pretty much that for the most part. And then obviously when I'm not doing that, I usually watch Netflix or Hulu or YouTube. This is the perfect time to binge watch shows.
It is. And have you watched Tiger King? Have you got there yet, bro?
I have watched Tiger King. Very, very,
it is a wild ride, brother. It's a wild show.
Extremely interesting. Very, very wild. Yeah, so how about you, Ethan? What positive things have you done during this?
Things. All right. So I've been in the kitchen a lot more, chefing it up, trying to perfect my culinary arts, my skills in the kitchen. Been getting better at that. I make a strong breakfast / lunch every day, and I eat that. And I've been trying to stick to really one large meal a day and kind of lightly snack throughout the day, drink a lot of water, and just trying to keep my mind active. Last night, I fell down the YouTube rabbit hole. I was looking up a lot of different interesting hobbies. Back in the day, I used to be heavy into sculpture. And I really enjoyed woodworking. I haven't done it in years. And I was like, maybe it's time to get back involved. So I spent at least 4 hours watching YouTube videos on woodworking, from watching just woodworking in general to power tool woodworking to hand tool woodworking to wood carving to power carving to it got interesting, I'll tell you that. So I started looking that stuff up. Don't know any decisions made on anything about that, but that's definitely been a thought process. I've been watching some shows here or there, playing a lot of 2K. I'm not sure if that's positive. Not sure if that's completely positive or not. That's
a very positive thing, sir. Brushing up on them skills. Become an elite 2K player.
Oh God, no. It's been tough, man. Just trying to figure out what to do. You want to feel, and you don't have to be productive, I suppose. That's the one thing. You don't have to be productive. You can take breaks. You can do your own thing. You can figure stuff out. It's, I will say, what is one thing that you have learned about yourself throughout this quarantine that you may have not noticed, or which you may have not have been able to recognize beforehand without this?
That me being an introvert earlier in my life has helped me in this situation.
So you're saying in the introverted life, you were born with it, molded by it. You were not merely adopted by the introvertedness.
Yeah, I mean, I did this really literally through all my years of school before college. So, it just ain't nothing. That's why I say it ain't nothing to me. It's like doing nothing. That's what I do anyway. It's different being forced to do nothing. But, you know, it's not like, oh, I'm going crazy. Cause some people are going crazy. Me, I'm just like, yeah, I'm just chilling, you know, hoping for the best. I'm just taking everything with a very open mind. Like I said, I've been able to get back into gaming more. Like I said, watching a lot of different shows. You know, like I said, I do walks. Obviously I communicate with friends more. A lot of time at night, I like to do like a lot of group FaceTimes, getting through my nights. You know, just different things like that. Keeps you very social. This time can really improve your relationships with people or hurt your relationships with people and show flaws. So there you go. I guess there's some, advice there for some of the people out there.
Yeah, at this point, if you're not calling people that you claim to be your friends, you may need to reconsider what you're claiming them to be, I would assume, because you're definitely not going to see them for a very long time. So if you haven't at least hit them up, say, how are you doing? And, you know, it's nothing to call them on FaceTime or video call, whatever the case may be anymore. You are at home. You can't say, oh, I was out, my bad. Oh, I was at the job. I mean, some people can.
Or what I like to, like what people like to use, you'll hit them up at like 1, you'd be like, what's up? And they'll text you back at 8 p.m. talking about, oh, sorry, I just had dinner.
Oh man. I hope nobody hit you with that. That sounds horrible.
But yeah, man.
How's, since you're at home with, mom and pops, how's that lifestyle been going?
It's been pretty decent, man. It's been, you know, we've been making it. My brother just left back to Korea. So.
What?
Yeah, you know, cause, you know, military had to ring them back in. They're basically going back to get quarantined, but you know, it is what it is.
Okay.
But yeah, outside of that, it's been pretty good. I can't complain. I think, you know, at this age for all of us, I think we're kind of like, being around our parents all the time, get a little irritated. And it happens, but I think, like I said, this is going to make you tougher. It's going to make everybody tougher.
Oh man.
Because it's like, this is something you never thought you had to go through in your life. And then you went through it, and then if you make it, you're just like, if I can get through this, I can get through anything.
Sure. Definitely so.
And this is a story you can tell your kids when you get older.
Back in my day, we were isolated in our homes. All we had was Wi-Fi, television, gaming devices, the internet, cell phones to call people. We were totally isolated. That's what I'm going to tell. That's what I'm going to tell my kids and sound like a complete weirdo.
I thought the apocalypse was coming. If you get that deep with it.
All we could go to is Kroger, Harbor Freight, the gas station, and the Wendy's down the road. That's it.
I was living off 4 for 4s.
Oh God. Okay. All right. Last sentiment. So, I think even the last time you were here at my house, my mom has been redoing some parts of the kitchen. She's been repainting and doing the cabinets, changing the hinges and the handles on her kitchen cabinets. And that's still going on. And when I tell you, she is a woman on a mission. She is every day when she comes home from work, cause she still has to work. She works in the medical field. She gets right to work. She gets on her work clothes, so to speak, and she stays into that sunroom or outside the house and start spray painting, start sanding. Her and Harbor Freights are best friends. Her and Lowe's and Home Depot, they're tight. They're homies, man. They're getting it in. So, shout out to Moms. She's getting it done. She's finding ways to be productive and stay busy during the quarantine. And in reality, she's probably the one that gets out the house more than anybody else in my family at the moment in time. Everybody else is stuck. Got nowhere to go, nowhere to be, but at the house. Yeah, just wanted to add that little tidbit. So if any home improvement, a big topic, a big subject in the quarantine files, so to speak. A lot of people are getting into the home improvement lifestyle because there's nothing else to do. You got to fix the squeaky faucet, the leaky roof. It's time to get involved.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Alrighty. Well, that will be our podcast for this week. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast, whatever platform you do choose to embark in, join us for this usual hour session. So thank you all for listening. Don't forget to follow us on our social media. So that is our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We out there, we active. Come interact with us. Any final messages, Brice?
Just the usual, stay safe, stay healthy, isolate yourselves, don't get sick, and we'll get through this. We're all going to power through this together.
All right. Same sentiments my way. For Brice, this is Ethan signing out for the GSMC Football Podcast. See you all next week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.